Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. So my name is Camila Rive. I am the ICCA Director of Programming. I'm really happy to present you the closing remarks of the ICCA Digital Gathering 2021 Solidarity Across Space, closing remarks with Aîné Blu Waters and Ann Marie Beals. I'm also here with my colleague, Emily Critch. So I'm wearing a little black beanie. I have two long braids. I also wear a black jacket, and I'm in my office in Georgia, Montreal, and there is a lamp behind me and a little, yes, my God, a brown door. And I'm sitting in front of my computer talking to you. And yes, thank you, Lauren and Ann Marie, to join us tonight. And I will let Emily also do a little visual description of yourself.
Thank you so much, Camille. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Anne Marie and Laureen, for being with us here tonight. So my name is Emily Critch. I'm the programming coordinator with the ICCA. I'm a short, white passing Mi'kmaq person, and I have a black hat. I have a black shirt, and I have like red lipstick, which matches my red porcupine quill earrings. Some almost aviator wireframe glasses, and there's one of my greenhouse plants behind me. With that visual description and with that introduction, I'm going to ask each of you for your introduction. So I was wondering if you'd be able to give a visual description of yourself and introduce your artistic, academic, community practices, and any biographical information you'd like to share. So how about you go first, Anne Marie?
Okay, thank you, Emily. So I am going to give a visual description of myself. So I am 5'10". I'm sturdy. My skin color, I guess, is medium brown. I have brown eyes. I wear locks that are currently braided, one on each side, so my hair is parted in the middle. I have heavy black framed glasses on right now, and my ears are pierced a lot. I'm also wearing a pair of really blingy kind of orange and red medallion-shaped earrings. I'm sitting in a black chair. Behind me is my bookcase with a lot of books on them. To my left is a coat rack, and to my right is another bookcase that I have some stuff on. So that's me visually, I think. And so, yeah, so my name is Ann Marie. I am a Two-Spirit Black Aîné, that is African Nova Scotian Mi'kmaq from the territory of Mi'kma'ki. So on my father's side, we were refugees from the War of 1812, so seeking freedom and a better life in Nova Scotia, landing in North Preston under British rule. And my mother, the daughter of my Black grandmother, my Mi'kmaq grandfather, was stolen away and placed in an orphanage called the Nova Scotia Home for Colored Children at the age of 2, and was there till she was about 19 or so. So usually in an orphanage, you age out around 18. So they sent her off to Toronto to be a maid for this white family who the husband was a priest and the wife was a homemaker. And she really didn't like it there. So they sent her back to the home. And eventually they just got rid of her by the age of 19. So she never really learned either African diasporic or Mi'kmaq ways of being and knowing. And she ultimately became a very successful product of colonialism and the break of transmission of Indigenous knowledges and the hatred of her being and her spirit. So though I am Indigenous to both Turtle Island and motherland Africa, I did not grow up on the land. I am not connected to my grandfather's community or my father's community. So as I was growing up, I existed basically as no one. But now I understand that who I am, how I identify is a political act. It's a political act of resistance. As a mixed blood Ilnu, I've come to realize that I must resist, not only as a mode of survival that I have been practicing all my life without naming my survival as such, but also because I continue to learn about the systems of imperialism, colonialism, racism, patriarchy, and capitalism, systems that have greatly affected my life and my mother's life, my father's life. All of our lives are greatly affected by these systems, and I had no idea growing up that it was that way. So now I know that these systems shaped the settler nation state known as Canada, and I continue to learn how these systems work in oppression and subjugation, assimilation and annihilation of Indigenous, Black and Indigenous Black peoples on these islands. So they want to get rid of us, yet we are still here and we resist. So that's who I am.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Laureen, are you ready there to give an introduction of yourself as well as a visual description?
I am. So good evening, everyone, or good day. My name is Aîné Blu Waters. I will introduce myself in the Cree language, which is my father's language, and it will sound like Tanse Eski Nikamun, Natisi Nakasun, Mayengendo Dem, Atathakuk, Saskatchewan, Red River, Eskazoni Nadunjaba, Ayakwe. So what I said to you is my name is Earth Song. That is the name I had before I became a human being, the name that in which my ancestors gone on before me, and those ones that are waiting to be born knew me by before I became a human being. And that name speaks to really who I am and my responsibilities in life. It speaks to having to bring sound to all of Earth's creation. And so my work as an elder with community really allows me to embrace that name and to bring voice to all the parts of creation that need to be addressed and need to be spoken for. And to help those others to find their voices, to find out who they are, and to speak for all those needs of the land. I've also told you that my family is from Atathakuk, Saskatchewan, and Red River on my father's side, on my paternal side, and also Eskazoni First Nation, which is my mother's side. And Eskazoni is a small little reserve off of Cape Breton Island. So I'm from the east and the west and was born in the middle of Ontario. And so Ontario is my home territory in which I live, but not my home from my lineage. So I am a guest here as well on this space in Ontario. I've also said to you I'm from the Wolf Clan, and that speaks to my responsibilities too, as being able to be that lone survivor, but also be very comfortable with others around me, that pact of people that are like-minded. It also speaks about humility, and that is the way I live my life. I try to be a very humble person and to follow on in the path of my teachers from my original family that existed since the beginning of creation. I've also said to you that I am a Yahweh, which is that word, that Cree word for neither man nor woman, so a gender diverse person, one that walks with both that masculine and that feminine spirit, and fluidly moves between both of them and encompasses both of them. It's hard to describe that to a lot of those that are from a Western way of being, because it's not just about my spirit, it's about my emotions, my physicalness, my intellectuality, and my spiritual being. And so it's hard to understand when we've only been taught that we can either only be masculine or feminine. But we have existed since the beginning of time, those of us that are gender diverse, and we will continue to teach others about our existence and help them to understand that part of our existence was taken away from us, but we are reclaiming it now and are standing up for each other so that we can truly be who we are and follow our direction that we know we should go in. I'm about 4 foot, probably 9.5 now because I'm shrinking. I'm 60 years old, so I'm not very tall. I'm probably about as round as I am tall almost. No, not really, but halfway there. So I'm a short, stocky person. I wear glasses. I have brown eyes, brown hair that has some gray highlights in it. I like to call them gray highlights. It's not gray hair, it's just gray highlights. My hair decided that it wanted to highlight itself. And I'm sitting in my car in the downtown Toronto area after leaving an event, but have made a commitment to be here tonight to share some of my words and to share some of my teachings with you, and to be present to this event that is finishing off today. So I want to thank you for allowing me to be here. You can just simply call me Blue. That's my preferred name. And my pronouns are they, them, being as I'm not all of one and all of another. So I like to think of myself just as that English word, they or them, meaning more than one. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much to the both of you for being here with us this evening and to be able to share. So with that being said, I'm just going to get started with one of the questions that we had for you this evening. So during the gathering, we invited Black, Afro-Indigenous, Indigenous, Two-Spirit and queer curators, artists, art workers, and educators who reflect and center their work on the knowledge and actions of solidarity through various ways. And we were wondering if each of you could share the ways solidarity is considered and enacted in the work that you do. And also, what are some life experiences or teachings that have impacted your relationships with solidarity? So whoever would like to go first can share.
Ann Marie, are you older than me?
Yes.
Then you can go first.
May I call you Elder Blue?
If you like to.
Okay. So I just want to say that I'm very honored to be here with you. Yeah, I've heard you speak at Land Back Powwow. It wasn't called Land Back Powwow, but to me it was Land Back Powwow. And I was just blown away by the sharing of your words. So I'm very honored to be here with you. And also, I'm very honored to be closing this wonderful ICCA digital gathering, Solidarity Across Space. And also today, so, you know, I'm not sure how this is gonna time since this is recorded, but Elder Lee Markel passed on to the ancestors today. And she had a special place in my heart. For me, she was a warrior woman. I learned a lot from the teachings that she so graciously gifted to us. She will be missed, but I know that her spirit and her teachings will carry on. And so since I guess I would be considered an academic because I'm in school, I'm a student. And I do community-based research. So some of the things that she shared with us around, you know, really critical insights in understanding the intersections of indigeneity and colonialism and feminism and the patriarchy and how they come together and how they can work as forces against us was really quite eye-opening for me. And I'm always be grateful for her teaching. So I just wanted to honor Elderly Markel's spirit here. And so in thinking about some of the life experiences, so that would be some of the teachings that I've had. But I feel like there's a push that we as Black and Indigenous peoples, we need to push to work together in solidarity, because if we don't, I feel like we may succumb to the forces of colonialism because the colonial project is strong. And so when I speak about being an academic, when I speak about being in school, it means that I'm a community-based researcher. So I really believe in lifting up the voices of community, because that's, for me, is what it's all about. But from the academic point of view, I mean, I read a lot of statistics about a lot of things. And so, you know, every single time when it comes to economic and social well-being for Black and Indigenous peoples in colonial Canada, we are always on the bottom. You know, We never make as much money as the white man. We suffer so much racism in healthcare. We suffer so much more chronic diseases. We die so much earlier than white people. We look at the stats for children in care, and we see that invariably, always, Indigenous and Black children in care is disproportionate related to white children in care. So when we look at adequate housing, food security, employment, education, Black and Indigenous peoples, I mean, we're always underrepresented in this colonial state. So I think that there's a shift here, and we're coming to realize that we are not each other's enemy, but we are both problems for the white man in his need to maintain power over us. So if we don't do the work together, if we don't support each other, we do not realize that the white man is purposefully seeking to separate us and divide us so that we keep busy fighting each other, then the white man can continue to do what he does best, and that's dominating and trying to maintain power over us. So I really feel that for our survival, and then just in thinking about even having a thriving life on the land, that we must fight back and work together on this. So that's just some thoughts on that.
Thank you so much. And how about you, Blue?
Well, you know, I'm not an academic, but I do like to say I have my PhD, but it's in LAND. It is not on a piece of paper that an institution has given to me. It has been my work with community since I was very young. At about 4 years old, I started my journey into being who I am today. And for me, I'm reminded of that understanding that, you know, solidarity means to come together and to stand up for each other and support each other. And I think, you know, one of the initial teachings I received a long time ago was that at one point, the earth was all connected. So our continents weren't separated. And that's why you find that if you go to somewhere, sorry about that, I'm in the middle of Toronto and you might hear some sirens because that's what happens here. I'm reminded that all the continents were connected. And if you go to different parts, to different countries, you'll find out that we have so much of the same practices. You know, I was very excited to learn that I was sitting with a young Afro-Indigenous girl, and she had said to me that, you know, where she comes from, the mountains in Jamaica, that they actually offer tobacco, raw natural leaves of tobacco, the same way as that we do here as North Americans or Turtle Island people. And I thought, wow, you know, like Jamaica is so far away from here. How come they do the same as us? And then listening to the Sami people and how they do the same things that we do. And then listening to people who are from South Asia, how they do things the same that we do. And it really cemented that teaching that I got about the earth was one time all connected and there wasn't these big bodies separating us of water. And that teaching that was given to me was that because we are human beings, and because we don't always work in the best way forward with each other, sorry about that, give me 1 second, because there's a helicopter overhead. The helicopter. That is very loud. Can you hear me okay? Okay, so I'll continue. So, being human beings, we wanted to be dominant over each other. We started not following our original understandings of being respectful and kind and sharing everything with each other, and we became greedy. And so the animals didn't want to talk to us anymore, and we lost our ability to talk to the animals. We started arguing and dominating each other, so we started separating from each other. But that wasn't good enough because we could travel far and wide. And so then eventually, all of creation said, Creator, you need to do something because the world is out of balance. And so the Creator decided to separate us from each other because we couldn't learn to play nicely with each other. So the world separated, and we have all these different continents and these large bodies of water, which made it very hard for us to travel. And they weren't just little rivers and streams; they're oceans that have separated us. And so, you know, we had to go back to that way of being to realize that it takes all of us together to really bring change and to have things that can either tear us apart or bring us together. And I think, especially in nowadays, we're finding out that we've been taught that everybody is different, but that's a lie, because we are so much more alike than we are different. We were taught to fear something we don't know, and that's a lie, because if we don't know something, the only way we can become educated is by knowing it, which means we have to be involved with it. And whether that's people, whether that's places, whether that's understanding, whether that's teaching, whether that's theological ways of looking at things, if we want to know something, we have to sit down at the table with each other. If we want to end fighting amongst each other, we have to come together to support each other. And no matter where we come from, because the bottom line is we are human beings walking on this earth. And all we're looking for in life is to be loved, accepted, and respected. And if we can do that with each other, then we can bring about a better way of being with each other. And so for me, solidarity is about bringing people together and not focusing on our differences. Acknowledge them. Yes, we do have differences, but that doesn't mean we can't work together with one mind, with one heart, to figure out a way to move forward in the best way and to have everybody's voice at the table respected and to be appreciated. Because we come into this world with many gifts, and we don't need people telling us that we're so different that we can't share them. We should be sharing our gifts with each other. We should be sharing our abilities and our strengths and being vulnerable at the same time, right? We have to be vulnerable if we want to create a meaningful relationship. We can't pretend that we're strong and we know everything, because we don't, right? There's many ways, you know, I always refer to things as a roadmap, something that a lot of young people don't know anymore today, those paper roadmaps, because we have GPS now. You know, GPS systems tell us the fastest way to get there. But in going the fastest way, sometimes we miss the scenery along the road. And so I like to refer to life as a roadmap. And if you look at an old-fashioned roadmap and you circle the spot in which you want to go, you can see that there's many routes to get there. And, you know, some are quicker than others. But sometimes it's not about being quick. It's about enjoying the journey to get to where you want to go. And it's not about being fast. It's about being conscious about what you're doing and where you're going and how you're getting there. And so for me, I'm reminded of that when we talk about solidarity, that there's many roads that each of us walk. Sometimes we can walk together side by side, shoulder to shoulder, support each other, and then that person disappears from our life. It doesn't mean they left us. It means that they needed to go on a different journey to get what they needed and to support where they were needed to help. And then sometimes they come back and cross over and we meet them again. And there's no guarantee for how long we walk with each other. But if we take the time to start a walk with each other, we can get what we need and we can bring our gifts together and we can build those strengths. So that's what I'm reminded about solidarity.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Elder Blue. And I think when you're referring to that roadmap, I think one of the ways that we can use that roadmap, I think, is by telling our stories, for instance. So as Elder Della Chenier said in the opening, it's about understanding each other through listening and sharing our experiences and our realities and our knowledges that will create that space for solidarity. And when you're speaking, I mean, I'm not sure, but are you referring to Black and Indigenous solidarity? Because I have a different feeling about Black and Indigenous solidarity, and then including the white man in that solidarity, which creates some tension for me in a way.
Oh, I hear you. I mean, for all of us who are Indigenous, who are Black, who are marginalized, who are have different abilities than the dominant culture, which has tended to be and continues to be the white man, right? The one who is teaching us to be bigger, better, faster, stronger. Step on the hands of who's ever on that ladder to get to the top, and it doesn't really matter. But in life, it does really matter. So I'm speaking about those of us who are marginalized, those who of us are Black or Indigenous together, those of us that are of mixed races, those of us that have been colonized, those of us that know what oppression is. Because until those that have never felt oppression or racism or segregation or isolation, till they learn that and they know what that is, they will never fully be part of a journey to work together with one mind, with one vision, with one goal. And so if the rest of us all come together, sooner or later, you're going to have that mentality from those who are the colonialists say, wait a minute, I'm missing out on a whole bunch of things here. How come I'm not invited to that table? How come I'm not sitting in those seats and enjoying what they're enjoying? And that's when we can say, are you ready to unpack your mind? Are you ready to let go of those oppressions and those segregations and that racism and those phobias that you've brought to us? Are you ready to learn in a new way? Because obviously you see your way hasn't worked. And now we're coming together, and we're coming together without you, unless you're ready to be part of unlearning that way and understanding that we all matter, not just you and who you deem matters, but we matter as a human race, and we matter of those who have been marginalized, oppressed, segregated, separated, isolated, and made to be feel less than. And so are you ready? Are you ready to unpack your colonistic ways and start to work for the good of all people to create that equity and diversity and inclusion? Because you speak those words, but you don't do them. You don't fully understand them because you have never experienced them. Are you ready to experience what we've experienced? And if you can say yes, then come and sit at the table. But if you do not understand that you will be held to accountability the same way as you have held us to accountability in your world, there will be repercussions, the same like you've given to us. We will separate those that are not like-minded. We will separate those who continue to force us to live under these conditions of being in poverty, of being segregated from each other, of being separated by classism, of being separated by color, of being separated because we're of mixed colors. Because, it's hard to find people that don't understand oppression and isolation and all these things who are the privileged. There are a few of them that do understand it. And those are ones that truly allyship with us, form that allyship with us, because all of a sudden their eyes get opened in some way from our words, from our actions, from our oppression, and they become the true allies. But unless your eyes are willing to be opened and your minds are willing to be unpacked, no, I'm not speaking for those who are those colonistic people that exist out there amongst us today and are trying to separate us even further.
Yeah, I feel you. So I was just thinking about that, and because we have such discussions about polarization on these lands and what that looks like. But I mean, I feel as a story sharer that I really want to be loud and obnoxious to the white man, and really like in raising our Afro-Indigenous voices and saying that we are here. And I want to be loud and obnoxious in saying that our Indigenous Black focus is on the white man, and we're looking at you and what you're doing. So in thinking about that, I was looking at liberation movements in Black and Indigenous nations and communities around the world, as you were talking about, Elder Blue. And we know that sharing our stories is a very good way to change the current dominant white supremacist colonial narratives that put whiteness as good and Black and Indigenous as bad. So during the civil rights and human rights movements of the 1960s, for instance, particularly the liberation movements, Red Power movements and Black Power movements were working to uplift their communities, but they also worked together in unity and solidarity because the activists, the people in these grassroots movements, knew who the common enemy was. And I say that in a metaphorical kind of way but it's the only way that my brain can really wrap around understanding the relations that we have on these lands with colonizers, because they are colonizers, and those of us who are oppressed by colonizers. So, you know, ultimately they want us dead, they want us assimilated, they want us in domestic servitude because that serves their greater purpose. And I think another important piece of understanding solidarity within Indigenous and Black communities is understanding how we got here. So by understanding how colonial Canada has attempted to cover up the genocides and the assimilation strategies to rid governments of the Indian problem, and European empires, especially the British Empire, that ended up colonizing this nation state and enacting the Indian Act of 1876, we come to know the why of how European countries became so wealthy with the use of slave labor and theft of lands, the subjugation of chattel, and the use of murder and massacre. So they were the tools that they used to colonize these lands. And so how could we not be affected by this? But yet if we arm ourselves with this knowledge and understanding how this all came to be, we can refute, like we can change the narrative of the colonial story and rewrite our history with our truths. I think we need to do that as Indigenous and Black people on these lands. We need to reframe the colonial story because it's a false story. And, you know, I'm coming to understand the need for safe spaces on stolen lands for Two-Spirit and Indigenous queer people, the youth in particular, because there are still places where in our Black and Indigenous communities, transphobia and homophobia still exists with anti-Black racism, which can be particularly violent for Afro-Indigenous, Two-Spirit, and Indigenous queer youth. A great space for Indigenous, Black, and Afro-Indigenous people from all over Turtle Island can gather in solidarity is Osi-Gun-Yu Gajaji Land Back Camp on the lands of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee nations, which I am a visitor of at this time, and where Two-Spirit, Indigenous, queer, trans, non-binary folks gather, participate in ceremony, and share laughter and joy in being our authentic selves. So in just thinking about what you said, Elder Blue, this is a place where I try to maintain my balance in a sense, just kind of leave it all behind for an evening or two and just laugh and be by the fire, just share joy, because it's important to share joy as well. So I'm going to give a big shout out and props to Bangishimo Johnson, Amy Smoke, and Tara Chartrand, whose vision created this space on the land in solidarity and resistance. And I think it's important to name these places and spaces where we can come together in solidarity. And I do this work because I imagine a better world for my children and for generations to come. Right now, I feel like, given the age that I am now, I probably won't see that kind of generational change that is needed. But, you know, I wonder, like, what is Mother Earth going to look like? What is Mother Earth going to feel like 30 years from now? It's not that far away, but, you know, the white man and entering into the treaty, entering into treaties just wants to, you know, take everything, take it all and leave nothing for anyone else. So, yeah.
With what you just said, Anne Marie, when you were talking about, you know, thinking about the future, you know, what advice would you and Blue give to current and future generations about being in solidarity with one another? You just listed some individuals who had been doing that work, but if any you know, youth-led or grassroots initiatives that you've seen or makes you hopeful, you know, what advice do you have about the future?
Shall I go, Elder Blue?
I can go if you like. You can have a little break there.
Okay.
You know, for me, when I was younger, I was a fighter, right? I really used that strength that I had, and I took control of situations where I felt that I wasn't being heard. I was very quick to anger and quick to act. But in doing so, as I get older, I realize I'm only perpetuating a violence that has always existed for strength and for dominance. As I get older, I'm really embracing those 7 grandfather teachings, or those 7 sacred teachings. Those teachings of truth and honesty and humility and wisdom and bravery and love and respect. And I know that if someone comes up to me and they're aggressive and they're like, "Hey, I want to talk to you," my first initial response is to back up and to put my hands up and say, hey, like, what's going on? Right? And so it creates that fear. And so I realized that even in my own actions, in acting out, I'm creating a fear. I'm not creating a reciprocal way of having a conversation. But I'm acting out of a strength that sometimes people cannot face, and they do not want to face, and giving them the opportunity to run away from the situation or to escape from the situation, to dismiss themselves and saying, this person is violent and aggressive. I don't need to be in this space. And so my words will never be heard by them, because they use that aggression that they give to us. When we try to exert that, they use it against us. And they're very good at manipulating situations to have our voices silenced. And so for me, I will do what my grandparents and those teachers that have given me. I will come and I will bring them tobacco, and I will ask to sit down with them. And then I will confront them in the ways that I need to confront them, without aggression, without hostility. I will speak those words and hold them accountable to those 7 words. And I will ask them, how are you being truthful in the way that you are treating people? How are you being wise, and how are you being respectful? How are you using those words that you use out there in communities that make yourself look good, but yet when we hold you accountable to those words and to act upon those words with the words that you use, saying, we're going to make change, we're going to create equality, when all along your plan is to not create equality. And you've shown that by your history, by your actions. You are dividing, you are separating people. And so I use those 7 grandfather teachings in the way that I hold them accountable for those 7 words. You know, I speak to them about, how are you showing love for each person who exists in your territory, in your space, in your work, in your group, in your, whatever it is you're doing, when you are oppressing them, when you are silencing them, when you're not paying them fairly, when you are not allowing them to have sick days to take care of their families so that you can profit. So I use those words in a quiet way. And when I'm meeting with someone who I know is very aggressive, and someone who has always used a dominant way of being, I talk even quieter, because it forces them to listen more intently. And so I take away those methods in which they think they're going to agitate me and confront me, to lose my composure, to act out in anger, and to respond in ways that can be considered aggressive. I don't give them that opportunity. And I think some of our great leaders who have advocated for solidarity have used that method. And every time they started to be more knowledgeable in the methods in which they were delivering those words of wisdom about solidarity, they were assassinated, they were killed, because they could not be in the same space as them, because they were being held accountable to something they couldn't fight against. And so I think, there is space for both of those mechanisms to work. We have to have our warriors on the front line. We have to hold strong in some ways, but we also have to be able to sit at those tables and negotiate with them in ways that they can't run away from, that they are held to accountability in a way, in a space where they can't escape from, and go back to that understanding that this is why I don't talk to these groups, because they're violent. This is why I don't partake in any of their events, because they're so aggressive, and they're using language that is not acceptable because children may be here, but yet behind doors they curse, they swear, they oppress, they use negative words, but yet in public they try to make themselves look like they are so righteous and so do-gooders. And so sometimes we have to fight fire with fire. Sometimes we have to offer honey and sugar to be able to get that cup of tea, and then we can have conversation. So it's a delicate balance, and we need both mechanisms to work within. And I see myself in the role that I play in communities and in speaking and sharing my understandings is not to be that aggressive person, because I was that aggressive person and it wasn't getting me anywhere. I didn't have the strength and the backing behind of other people. But nowadays, we have those that are willing to work with us. Because when we look at all the marginalized people who have been colonized, if we all got together, there would be no oppressors, because we would be the majorities. We are the majorities now where we were once the minority. And so focusing on bringing all those who have been oppressed, sharing those understandings, because they know what it's like to be oppressed. So if we bring them into our fold now, we become that larger group of people. And when our voices are loud and strong enough, we will be heard, because we have been forced to be silent and separated. But now people are seeing that we are more alike than we are different. And so we're standing shoulder to shoulder now. Even those that have been the colonists are turning away from their own ways in which they learned, because they see the world is not getting better, and they are concerned for future generations, right? They are concerned for themselves and future generations. So they see that what is happening is not working. And so now they're looking for guidance from us who have been marginalized and oppressed, because we are the majority now, and we will continue to be the majority until they become a minority and their ways become a way of a path, not a way forward.
I think about that as well, Elder Blue, in a sense of understanding, trying to understand why isn't that we haven't come together in a sense. I feel like I'm more of a revolutionary, and I just want to just burn it all down, as Herschel says. That's kind of my frame of mind right now, because I feel like sometimes the colonial mindset, the colonial project is so strong in that the messaging is constant here in colonial Canada. Like, we're better, we're better, we're better. The white man is better. Follow our ways. We know what to do. We know how to fix you. Not recognizing, of course, that they are the problem, not us. But the messaging is constant. And I feel like sometimes it's almost like internalized oppression that sometimes I just want to shake people and say, do you understand that this is the white man's way of separating us and giving us these messages that we don't love ourselves and that we're not worthy and we're inferior. It's a constant kind of messaging that happens all the time. But you know, I learned a teaching from Kenya Rami, who's performed at the cabaret, because they were taking so much pride in who they were and not letting white supremacy mindsets dictate their identity, and resisting the racist stereotypes that so permeate Western society, colonial society, and demanding justice and no longer hating who they are. So I found that really powerful. So I guess the message would be that we need to love ourselves, while at the same time understanding why we feel pain, understanding where we come from, how we can resist the very thing that causes us that pain, and that is colonial mentality. and trying to divide us and saying that this group is better than this group, or this group is less oppressed than that group, or whatever, the tricks that they use to try to make us hate each other and rail against each other. It's a powerful thing, but I think that understanding that and knowing our history and where we're coming from can negate that colonial narrative of shame that they've tried to put upon us, and that we're just not worthy in their eyes. We're just inferior on that racial hierarchy. So, you know, just in thinking about how my father's people came to be in Mi'kma'ki in the East. So, you know, they were enslaved people. They wanted freedom. They escaped. The British said, you know, you come over here, you fight for us, and we'll give you all kinds of land. We'll give you all kinds of stolen indigenous land. They didn't say that, but that's what it was. And we'll give you rations, and we'll give you everything that you need to make a good life in Nova Scotia. But that just wasn't the case. But they did not come to steal indigenous land. They did not come to usurp Mi'kmaq sovereignty. Yeah. But we can't continue to let that message permeate our thoughts and our souls, because it's just so detrimental to our well-being. You know, as the colonial project rolls on, you know, continuing to steal land, continuing to steal our children and put them in care. The white man does not want us to fight back. And so to keep us divided is a colonial strategy that will prove fruitful until we understand why it is and the way that we are through a colonial perspective on these lands. So disrupting the narrative of the white man, going back to our teachings. Yeah.
Great. Any other thoughts, Blue? Oh, we're all good. Oh.
Sorry about that. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, I lost my signal for my audio, so I don't know why, but it's gone. I mean, my video. You know, you're absolutely right about that. And when you think about life, Ann Marie, when we talk about balance as an Indigenous person, we talk about, you know, balancing that spirituality that we have in the way of our culture, our teachings, our beliefs. We talk about that emotional part of our being. We talk about that physical part of our being, and we talk about that intellectual, you know, that part of that wheel of balance. And, you know, I'm reminded that, you know, when we deal with things only in an emotional way, we're neglecting the other three parts of our well-being. And so we can become out of balance. When we deal with things only in a physical way, you know, and always having to show up and be present and to run ourselves ragged, trying to voice our voices, the other three parts of our well-being suffers. And when we're all intellectual and we deal with everything on an intellectual level, we neglect our emotional way of looking at things, you know, that includes empathy and compassion and love and understanding and our physical way. So, you know, we have to get back to those understandings of being in balance, of utilizing all those resources that we have in our ways of understanding, of using our spirituality, our ceremonies, our way of solving conflicts through coming together with one mind, with one purpose, and to have everyone included in on those conversations and decisions not being made until we are all of one mind, one understanding. And we need to really address our emotions, right? We need to heal from the hurts that we've encompassed and we encountered through our journeys, those wounds of oppression, of racism, of phobias, of isms that exist out there. So we need to heal. And then we also need to become and have those academics in and around us, the ones that speak the same language as the oppressor, the ones that know how to sit at the tables and negotiate and read those papers to have as much understanding as what they've come to make those laws and regulations so that we can fight against them. And then, of course, to respect each other's spiritual way of being, each other's culture, each other's relationship to the one that has created everything and every person and every part of creation for us. And when we can come together in that way with each other to support each other's understandings in those 4 ways of being in balance, then is when we're going to be powerful. And we see that happening now. We see our youth picking up their ceremonies and their culture and their languages. We see them addressing the intergenerational traumas that they were exposed to and starting on their healing journeys and creating that wellness in their whole being. We see them being physically present and showing up now and wanting to bring that unity amongst those that have been oppressed and marginalized. And we see that in our youth being in schools and post-secondary education, you know, in our colleges, in our universities, becoming those lawyers, those navigators, those negotiators, and making sure that our voices are represented in those spaces where we were isolated from. And so we see that balance coming back into play. It can never come fast enough because, you know, we want things fast, but it's taken us over 500 years to be in these spaces, and we're not going to get out of them within in a short 10 or 20 or 30 year term. But if we keep guiding each other and supporting each other to keep fighting for our rights that we should have had, fighting to make sure that we are not oppressed over and over again, that's when the change is going to happen. Just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, sorry, Anne Marie, you were about to say something when the audio did something there.
No, I was just saying to Elder Blue that I too feel that it's in the wind. I'm feeling it. I just hope we don't run out of time. Is my only concern.
You know, Anne Marie, I hear you, but then again, when we know that when we rush and we push things when they're not ready, you know, they bend and break, right? If we go to those trees that are not pliable and we try to bend them over and they're not pliable, well, they're going to snap off and then we won't have that. So, you know, sometimes it is that gentle reminder that we can't be forceful to create something that was made in force. Sometimes we have to be gentle to combat and bring that balance.
I will take your words to heart, Elder Blue. Willallen.
Well, thank you so much for to both of you for sharing your wisdom, beautiful words, also talking about love and fighting those systems and being gentle with others. I think there's a lot of teaching there that we're all gonna carry with us tonight. So thank you so much for your generosity and sharing your teaching with us. Also, I just want to say if people miss some of our events for the 2021 digital gathering, it's still possible to go on our website, icca.art, to see any of our other events that we mentioned tonight. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for inviting me here, and Anne Marie, pleasure sitting with you, and Emily, and all those that have made this possible and allowing our voices to be heard tonight and shared with each other. So, Miigwech, hi, Willallen.
I feel the same. Thank you so much for creating this space where we can speak our words and have conversation, because as Elder Blue says, no one has all the answers, and we go forth in the ways that we know, and but I feel that we will see a change. Yeah. So Alalan to all of you.